Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to a virtual Open Iftar 2021. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Adnan and I'll be hosting this evening. Got a very exciting plan today, and we have three speakers, which I'll give an introduction to a little bit later on, but Manchester's finest. But before we get into that, I want to be able to thank our media partners this year. So we have the Islam channel. So a special welcome to all those joining us from the Islam channel, Facebook and YouTube. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. And I also want to be able to say thank you to the Arts Council UK. Those of you involved know that without their help, we wouldn't really be able to set up this program going forward as well. So a massive shout out to Arts Council UK. Our work this Ramadan is supported by Islamic Relief, who are our charity partners, and more of this information can be found online at iruk.co/RTP. Okay, great. So bit of house rules, I suppose, as we get into this. We'd like to keep this as interactive and engaging as possible. Since it's over Zoom, there are a few interaction buttons that you can use. So you can find the reactions button at the bottom if you're using their website, the web service. And if you click on that, you will find various different buttons. So you can raise your hand if you have a question, or if you want to get involved, or you want to be able to ask, throw some input. We definitely encourage this, and we can get you on and ask questions too. And there's also many other options at the bottom as well, just to be able to interact or say how you're feeling. The options also available on the mobile phone as well is under more. There's a more section. Same thing again, reaction options. You can raise your hand, you can ask questions, and we can unmute you to go forward. So today's session is going to be recorded. However, we still encourage everyone to, turn your cameras on. We want to be able to see who's around, and make this as interactive as possible. Okay, that's the house rules. So the agenda for today, let's run through that quickly before we get into a bit more interaction. So essentially, we do realize we started a little bit late today, so apologies for that. However, we will have a little bit of an interaction with the audience first, as we always do. We would love to see who's around, who's joined us before, and what the story is. And then we'll have an introduction to the speakers about 35 past. So 7:35, we'll have an introduction. 20 minutes for speaking. So 7:50, 7:55, we'll conclude and go into question and answer section. And then we'll finally end it off just before the Azan at 8:22 today, 8:22. Okay, so without further ado, let's have a look at who is here. I mean, you can also chat, message in the chat function. I want to be able to see who's around, where's everyone come from, who's been to the Open Iftar event before. If you've been before to the actual Tavistock Square where we had the marquee back in 2019, that was actually the first time I got involved with the Ramadan Tent Project. For those that went and that remember as well, the blue ribbons hanging down, the big white tent, loads of speakers, loads of food, lots of people from all over the world. So let's have a look. I'm gonna ask some people to talk out a little bit. I see Shabana. I want to pick on you. I'm sorry, Shabana. It's been a while since I've spoken to you.
It's all right. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Yes, I was saying, we were talking before at the beginning, it's halfway through Ramadan now, so the end is in sight. Hopefully.
We were saying before, yeah, like we were saying before, today is one of those weird ones, isn't it? Everyone's feeling, there's something in the air today. Everyone's feeling the fast. There's something going on. And I don't know what it is, but for me, I think, like you might mention as well, the weather might have had an impact. But maybe it is 14 days in, and maybe we just need a bit of a boost at this stage. How's it going for you?
It's good. It's good. It's definitely cold at the moment in London. So yeah, I think it's definitely harder as the weather gets colder. But I think it's more just the fact that Eid's in sight and everything that happened last year. Obviously, kind of had 2 Eids in lockdown. You can't see your family. So this year, I suppose Eid will be completely different for everybody. So yeah, that'd be nice.
Definitely. And tell me as well, what are you most looking forward to as well? I mean, what's Eid like for your household?
So I'm based in London with some of my siblings, but I'm from Manchester. So Eid is just a time for everyone to be together. Obviously, go to mosque in the morning, have a coffee and a pastry.
Start with the coffee.
Yeah, don't have it for 30 days, and then you have one straight after Eid namaz. But yeah, no, but it's just nice everyone being together and family. It's just about everyone being together, sharing food. Yeah, but how about you? What's Eid like for you?
Eid's one of those weird ones, right? When you've got half your family doing it on one day, and then the other half doing it the day after. And we've had occasion once, I think it was my cousin was like, "No, we're not coming to the mosque today." So I was like, "Okay, cool, we'll celebrate today." But I quite liked it in a way because it was extended for both days. But it always starts off with something sweet in the morning. Always something really early morning, sweet, nice, straight in, warm, like same. I don't know if anyone knows about that sort of stuff. Yeah,
Jalebis and milk.
Jalebi.
Yeah, in milk.
That's not milk. That's something else.
No, you have fresh jalebis and then you put them in hot milk.
That's the first I've heard that one. Fair enough.
Oh, I'm sure there's other people. We'll have to put it. No, look, see, that before. Afsal's all about the jalebis and milk.
I'm still giving a thumbs up, but.
And Semia is a traditional one, though. Yeah, I make Semia every Eid.
I'm gonna ask Asfal about this actually. Let me.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. You're giving a thumbs up, but what is this?
I am.
Jalebis and milk.
Jalebi and milk is special. Power food, huh?
I'm gonna log off now and just leave. I'm not sure about this. Normally we have the ruafsa with milk. That sometimes is questionable. And then Shabana is just saying no to this completely now.
No, it's
just try it. Warm milk with jalebi. Okay, you won't try anything else after that.
You know what? I need to come to Manchester a lot more. It's my second favorite city, and next time I'm there, next time I'll try for sure. But well, since we talk about jalebis and milk and Manchester, that is going to be the theme. Not jalebis, but Manchester. And we have three great speakers here today. So first and foremost, we have the Mayor of Manchester joining us today, Andy Burnham. I'm just going to unmute you now.
Assalamu alaikum. Evening, everybody.
Walaikum salam. Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. It's great to be with you. What an amazing gathering this is. So, yeah, really great to be with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have the second also speaker as well, Afzal Khan. You're already unmuted, and I'll give you let you introduce yourself a little bit as well.
Yeah, well, assalamu alaikum to everyone, and maybe belated Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you. And the third and final speaker, Zia Salik, who is the head of fundraising at Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Again, pleasure to be here with everyone, and seeing Brother Afzal again in a short space of time. These virtual gatherings are allowing us to meet more regularly than we used to in person, to be honest.
Hopefully not for too long. Hopefully we can go back to normal and actually get together as well. So we're definitely looking forward to that. Thank you all for joining us. Honestly, I'm looking forward to this. Manchester is actually a very cool city, close to my heart, that I spend a lot of time in. But today's topic is going to be more around community cohesion, and more specifically, how the COVID response has been in Manchester. So, I mean, this is a very general and open topic as well. It's not just about sort of COVID cases or anything else like that, but also what's happening on a wider scale of things there as well. And it'll be really good to hear as well of all the different organizations that have been sort of sprung up during the last year now, I think it's been. So it'll be really good. What we'll do is we'll do it sort of one speaker at a time. We'll start off with Andy, and then we'll go off to Afzal afterwards, and then Zia then finally. And then 5 minutes per speaker. I think it's more than enough time. Okay.
Okay. Shall I
go for Andy? Yep. Thank you.
Shall I lead off? Well, you say Manchester's your second favourite city. Well, I could say the same about London, actually, for all of the Londoners on the.
You're assuming London's my favourite. I'm actually from Reading, so.
It's not true that I don't like London. I love London. But it's, I love London as in its place, if you like, as the second city to the great city of Manchester. It's not true, Afzal. That's the way we see it, isn't it? But anyway, it's
absolutely
be with you all, and great to address this really important topic, community cohesion. we are lucky here. This is a place that is a true beacon of diversity, of equality. I think we saw that obviously when tragedy struck here in 2017. There is a genuine togetherness in Greater Manchester, and it always comes through in the difficult moments. And it really came over to me last year, really, when we had obviously the pandemic, but also, if you like, the culmination of the pandemic of racism and Black Lives Matter. It made me just kind of reminisce about how 160 or so years ago, Greater Manchester cotton workers refused to handle slave pick cotton. And so they were saying here all those years ago, Black Lives Matter. This is a city that has in its DNA a belief in all humanity. And we're very proud of that. We're very lucky to live in a place like that. And it kind of, it gives me a special privilege, obviously, to lead a city like this as we look to recover from this pandemic. It has hit us hard. I'm sure Afsal will say the same. We've had high cases. Why have we had high cases? Well, I think it is linked to people's work, and our Muslim communities, Pakistani community, Bangladeshi community particularly, but all Muslim communities here have been hit harder than others in many ways, because many people are overrepresented in the most at-risk professions, the professions that have suffered the most, if you like, from exposure to COVID. And it's been tough for us all. And then linked to sometimes the poor quality of housing, particularly in the private rented sector. And too many of our residents are struggling with, poor quality, insecure work linked to poor quality housing. And, we're really clear that we have to, if levelling up is to mean anything, we have to do something about that coming out of the pandemic. I think the lowest point of the last 12 months was when, right on the kind of very eve of Eid al-Adha, I've got that right, I think, Adnan, it was in late July last year. I mean, I know how much this hurt people, but, we were asked by the government to go under local restrictions. And, literally on the evening when people's plans were laid, and, I could see Afsal nodding because he was sort of ringing me saying, and it was really tough. It was really tough. And normally we would always consult with communities. We didn't have the time to do that. And we just obviously felt we had to do the right thing from a public health point of view. I did say at the time that though that wasn't perfect at all, that I would advocate the same for Christmas. And I did advocate the same for Christmas. And obviously then we saw that later in the year. So it's been hard for everybody, hard for everybody. And, you may remember, Adnan, that we kind of had our disagreements with the government as well, because we were under restrictions without the support for people driving taxis, for people working in our hospitality settings. Bolton, a town that, has many people from a Muslim background, just closed down overnight. The hospitality was just closed and no support. So it was really, really tough for people. But we stayed together. And the thing I always remember from last year was when I did sort of have a little disagreement with Boris. You may remember, I don't want to get political tonight, but actually when I looked over my shoulder, there was a lot of togetherness in our streets, and, people of all backgrounds and politics came together and said, we need to look out for each other here, and we need, to stand strong for each other. And, we're lucky to live in a city like that. And actually, just to say, we've had a fantastic response from our mosques, from all of our communities. The amount of help that they have provided with regard to meals, other forms of humanitarian support, Islamic relief, our colleagues there, but also human appeal and others. There's been so much going on to provide support. I know we've had support also for our efforts on homelessness, and it's just massively appreciated. And in more recent times, I know particularly the mosques in Oldham have done some fantastic work around vaccination and getting the vaccination rates up. And we've worked very much in partnership. And I pride myself actually on the close dialogue that we've had with the Council of Mosques here in our Muslim communities all the way through. And we've got to this point, and hopefully better times ahead. So Adnan, I'll finish here and say, For me, Ramadan is important in Greater Manchester because obviously it's a time to put yourself in other people's shoes, to think about how other people have to live, to start from the perspective of those who have least. I think we sometimes see in the world that Afsal and I are in, it's always people lobbying for those who've got most and the connections that come with that. Actually, Ramadan's important because it turns things around and puts them as they should be, where we focus on those who have least. And we think about those who've lost over the last year. Many families in our Muslim communities and beyond bereaved and still grieving. And we think about each and every one of them this evening. But I hope it's of some comfort to them that they live in a city region where nobody walks on by on the other side. Everybody looks out for each other, where we stand strong for each other, where we are truly believers in equality and diversity, our common humanity. That is what the bee, the symbol of the bee, the Manchester symbol says, you know, no one's more important here than anybody else. We are one team working together for the common good. And this Ramadan 2021 is a good time for us all to remember that and actually celebrate the fact that we have come through this and that better times lie ahead. But thank you for listening. And I look forward to the conversation further on. Thank you, Andy.
No, that's really good words as well. And you've got a lot, I don't know if you can see other people on the screen, but a lot of claps and applause coming your way as well, which is great to see. And just back on of that as well, I mean, anyone else that's watching, also get your comments in. You can message me directly, or you can also raise your hand or comment to ask any questions as well. Going on some of the points that you raised, Andy, as well. Manchester, when I say it's second favorite city, is because Reading's number one. It has to be. My home is number one. And there was actually a really funny point, a couple of years ago. I wanted to move to Manchester, and I did all the research I possibly could. I knew every place, Spinningfield, Ancoats, you name it. I knew the biggest, the fastest growing industry, everything. And the reason why actually is because you mentioned the bee. And the first time I saw that, I was really confused. I didn't get it. But it wasn't until someone else explained to me what it means and what it represents. That, in essence, was why I was so drawn to a city that's so strong as a community, brings people together. Despite all the different types of ethnicities available in Manchester, everyone still comes together, and people are generally just nice. You know, like I just felt that feeling for sure. And that's not putting anyone else down. That's not saying any of the cities any lower. It's just you get that sense of feeling as well. And I remember my best friend Hamza as well from Manchester. It was just that feel you get. But I liked your points about the local community came together and they sprung up. You know, they started doing food volunteering. They started doing COVID vaccinations. That in essence is not only profound that, you know, at time of crisis, people have come together, but that shows going forward from this, you know, this is something you can definitely salvage and keep and value and grow for other things afterwards as well. So really good to hear that. And actually I want to hear more about this as well. So what I'll do is next speaker, Afsal Khan, so I'll bring you on and we'll have a little session for you of five-ish minutes, let's say.
Yeah, that's fine. And let me say again, assalamu alaikum to those who have joined since. It's a wonderful really to join you here tonight. Especially, I think it's nice that Andy has also joined us. Andy is a good friend of mine. We've been working together for many years. And I'm sure, inshallah, we'll be working for many more years together further. Before I start, I thought, let me take the opportunity to say thank you to yourself, Adnan, and the Ramadan Tent Project. I've been seeing since 2013 that you started in SOAS University, and how this has been growing, how you covered so many different major cities in the UK, and today's theme itself, community cohesion, because I think your project itself, the heart of it is exactly this. This is what you have been doing. It's not just today. You've been doing this for the last 7-8 years. And it's really impressive to see that over these 7-8 years, more than 200,000 people have actually participated with your events. That is some achievement, and it's rightly that your achievement has been recognized by the Mayor of London, bringing Londoners together, and similarly the Interfaith Community Relations 2019 awards that you got. It is impressive achievement. Over 300 speakers that you hosted in 8 years. So keep up that good work, really. I think is something which is needed in our society. We see this day and age with so much of social media, so much of populist ideas, far-right ideas, how people want to use the opportunities to divide. And it's your project, which is actually bringing people together and is building those bridges. It's built a strength within our communities, which we so much need. So you will always have my support. I'm sure you have the support of Andy Burnham and many other people as well. We think this is a very important work that you are doing. Now, this event tonight gives us a unique opportunity to reflect on the spirit and values that tie our communities together. Very appropriately, like you've chosen the theme of community cohesion. For me, at the core of Islamic principle and Ramadan, which is a month of fasting, charity, and a blessing, an opportunity to make ourselves better, our family stronger, and to serve our society. For many, this month is an opportunity to focus on reflection and spiritual growth, forgiveness, patience, resilience, compassion for those less fortunate, and unity across communities. It's also a time of year that brings some of the best dishes to the tables across the world as families and neighbors gather for iftar. Now, personally, fasting this month allows me to focus on the plight of those who involuntarily go without food or water throughout the year. It reminds me to be grateful for all the things that I have, and is an opportunity to really give back to the community as well. COVID-19 has been tough, as Andy was telling us. It's been tough, not just for us in Manchester, but in the whole UK. And the truth is, it's been a global pandemic. And therefore, it's been a huge sort of impact globally as well. We've seen this then. As the Muslim organization, I suppose, have been amazing. I've seen this both nationally and here in the Manchester, how they've come forward and the charity work that they've been doing. It has been absolutely incredible. As the MP for Manchester Gorton, I have only genuinely, honestly been humbled and overwhelmed by the charitable nature of local Muslim organization during this immensely difficult time. And the work of Human Appeal, Merit Foundation, the British Muslim Heritage Center, and the Qadri Jalani, who have given something like 64,000 hot meals throughout this year, helping others. So it's we provided a real lifeline to those in Manchester and beyond. And the recent report by the APPG and British Muslims, where I'm a vice chair, has shown really the Muslim community here in the UK have embraced Islamic values of supporting communities and those who are vulnerable and in need. And their significant contribution toward the national effort to combat COVID-19 is both inspirational and admirable. Last year alone, Muslims in the UK donated more than £150 million to charity. For me, this is the face of Islam, a religion of giving and generosity. So most of all, I would like to honor those who are working on the front line. Your humility, your kindness, and strength are greatly appreciated. So thank you again for inviting me here today to sharing with these great speakers and Andy. And I look forward to our conversation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Afzal. Thank you for that piece. Really good points over here as well, actually, and even yourself, you got applause as well. So I'm definitely not left out here. A couple of things actually I liked about that actually. So first and foremost, it's a pleasure to have you here, and honestly, there's no need to thank us, because actually we've got to thank you for actually taking the time out and actually sharing your insights. This is an incredible program for sure. Just for everyone else's information as well, like I said before, Ramadan 10 project has been around for a long time, but it all changed last minute when COVID hit. And I think the innovation that really took place last minute to transmit this online is exceptional. It happened so quickly. My first time I actually experienced Open Iftar with Ramadan 10 project was 2019. I remember seeing the tent, I remember seeing the ribbons, I remember the speakers coming up, thinking it's such a great opportunity to interact with people. And all of that, yes, it's different in 2020, but this has brought a lot of people together. And so we encourage this, and we encourage everyone else to get involved as well. And also get your questions in. This is a one-off opportunity to ask Andy Burnham, Afzal Khan, and Zia Zalik as well about anything that you have. So make the most of it. 150 million to charity. That's a significant number. That is very, very exceptional. I think if I can put my hands together for that as well, I would right now, but I don't know how to use this Zoom call. And also thanking the frontline workers for sure, 100%. It's been absolutely incredible how far we've come in 1 year's time, and we wouldn't be there with all the hardworking nation we have left, right, and center of this country. So 100%, we put our hands together for that. The charity aspect is something that actually translates really nicely to our next speaker, Zia Salek, as well, who is the head of fundraising. And I want to bring him on if he is unmuted.
I am indeed, I think.
Yes, you are. We can hear you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And I think from my side as well, and just reiterating most of the conversation we've had, not just around how sort of the communities come together, but also how is fundraising, what patterns have you seen in fundraising, or if any, and what's your experience of that been as well, being in Islamic Relief?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, assalamu alaikum to everyone. Thank you for having me. And again, honored to be sharing the virtual stage with such esteemed guest speakers. We had some amazing moments of community cohesion that we saw throughout the last 12 to 14 months, I would say. There was a few of the highlights. Andy Burnham making the headlines at one point as well was a personal favorite, to be honest. We won't go too much into detail about that one, but it was an exceptional year, and I think from my perspective, I see the picture from the vantage point of the whole of the UK in my role, and I'm involved with teams across the country, again, the last 12 months has really shown us what community cohesion can look like, and what the positive face of integration and different communities coming together can actually achieve. We saw, within just literally, I think it was maybe a week or 5 days before national lockdown, we had to literally pull the plug on everything. We had 400 offline events planned for the Ramadan campaign last year. And that was from mosque engagements and collections to fundraising dinners. We had some international speakers coming for major tours. We had, each event, we had 3 events with a very renowned Islamic speaker from Pakistan. And we had, 3,000 seater venues booked out with tickets sold. And, of course, we had to literally pull the plug on everything. But subhanAllah, in moments like that, first of all, from the volunteers that we work with, or that work with Islamic Relief, and I'm sure the same applies to many other organizations, in that kind of crisis moment when everything you've been planning for the last 2, 3, maybe 6 months has literally been pulled from underneath you. There was, after the initial shock of, oh my God, what's going to happen? I think it was amazing to see how everybody was galvanized. I think in the last 12 months, activism has really taken a whole new leaf. It's gone to a whole new level. The whole BLM movement, I think, galvanized activists' imaginations, the way that they would voice their opinions, and the way that they not only spoke out against injustices on the platforms that were available to them, but also actually translated that into action as well, where they put their hands in their pocket and supported causes that really supported people that were affected by these injustices. And we saw that with so many campaigns. but we really saw it with the way that the community responded to the need here in the UK. In the last 12 months, we saw a massive rise in people that needed our support right here at home. Islamic Relief is, 38 years old. It's fairly young in the grand scheme of things if you compare us to the British Red Cross or some of the other kind of very long established organizations. But in that very short space of time, we've helped and supported over 130 million people across the world. And that is our core strength. That's where we were born out of, emergency response overseas. But we've seen over the last 10 years, as we've started doing our work in the UK, the need is growing exponentially. And the lockdown really exposed the inequalities that exist in our country, and the support mechanisms and the gaps that exist. But what it also highlighted was that community spirit that we've been talking about so far. We saw so many people step forward and really give their time, their energy, and financially to support people who are not as well off or facing challenges of being, losing their job or being put on furlough or even being made redundant. We saw people who were giving up their time on weekends to deliver food to people who are self-isolating because they couldn't leave the house, they couldn't get food, they couldn't get medicines. And we saw people give so generously. In the last 12 months, in the last Ramadan, we're obviously in Ramadan again now, but last Ramadan, we saw the number of people that were giving to charity go through the roof. It was an exponential growth, especially from the Muslim community, which is our core demographic. And I was on several appeals on TV, on a radio and stuff. We had callers calling in saying, I've lost my job. I'm looking desperately for something else, but I've seen what's happening. And this was the COVID response in the UK. And I'd like to give a small amount. And that to me was so inspiring. And it really showed the strength of faith, but also community spirit, that I'm going through difficulty, but I'm still in a slightly better position than my neighbor. Brother Afzal mentioned a few great organizations, for example, the Myriad Foundation in Manchester. That's an organization we've worked very closely with, and we've delivered lots of kind of items to people in need in the region through. But we've also worked with organizations like the National Zakat Foundation, because they saw a massive surge in people applying for hardship grants because of lockdown and because of an impact on their income. And so we've been supporting with, I think, over £400,000 in the last year alone to just giving grants in the UK for people to literally make ends meet, pay rent bills that they couldn't afford, or pay for food or basic things that they needed to survive, essentially. And that's here in the UK. We're not talking about a third world country. This was right here in the UK, people saying, I can't afford to pay my bills, I can't afford to buy food for my children. And we were handing out hardship grants. And then the other thing, which I think it's important to just touch upon, was the impact on mental health. We worked with the Muslim Youth Helpline, and because they also reached out and said, look, we're getting a massive surge of young people calling in with lots of issues of depression, of anxiety, of, especially when exams were cancelled and they were going to be graded based on their teacher's recommendation and so many other things. But every challenge that we faced, we saw that volunteers and the community stepped forward. We saw groups of people creating fundraising pages off their own back. We weren't reaching out and saying, guys, we need you to do this. They were reaching out to us saying, we've put up a fundraising page. We're raising money for this appeal, both here, to be fair, both here in the UK and overseas. I mean, for example, places like Yemen, who are going through catastrophic COVID cases. And just off their own back, volunteers raised £500,000 from fundraising pages. And that to me just showed how galvanized our community across the UK, but in areas like Greater Manchester, where we have a massive presence, alhamdulillah, and thousands of supporters and hundreds of core volunteers. It was really, really inspiring to see. And I think, in crisis, we always see the best of people. And I think that the last 12 months, in my opinion, has been a testament to that, especially at the community level. Of course, other words can be used for things that have happened at other levels and decision making at other levels, but at the community level, at the grassroots level, it's been inspiring to see. And I think people put their differences aside, and people who have different opinions, who have different views on things, have come together for a greater good. And I think that also embodies what the Ramadan Tent Project is about, what Open Iftar is about. It's about people who can have very differing, very opposing views, but come to a table and break bread together. I mean, at the moment, virtually, but literally at least be together in a forum where conversation can happen, barriers can be broken down, and understanding can be created so that we can move forward collectively as a cohesive community. And I think that's why it's important for everyone to engage with platforms like the Ramadan Tent Project, as opposed to saying, you know what, I've got different views to this, I'm going to take a step back. I'll leave it there, otherwise we'll probably overrun.
No, well, we appreciate that. We like that. We like the conversations. Again, you know, claps all around, and we like to see this as well. I've taken a few notes, some that really stood out to me as well. I think that the biggest one for me was that the Muslim community came together and exponentially the charity increased. That for me is a very proud moment to be a Muslim as well. You know, it's very good and to hear that. The other one that you mentioned was around the 400,000 grants that were given out, but also the brother that came on the channel to donate even whilst he lost his job and stuff as well. That for me is great. You know, I love to see that sort of stuff. And actually there's questions around that as well, and I won't mention too much, but I think Andy Burnham's very efficient at answering these questions on the comment section. However, I do want to bring on a question from the audience, and it will be open to all three speakers. So if I can, I'll bring on Shabana first. Hi, Shabana.
Hello. Yeah, no, thank you to all three speakers, and obviously thank you for your time. And it's great to hear what you have to say, especially because I'm a Manc, I was born in Manchester and grew up there. I think Andy has answered my question, and I suppose it's just to hear more, and also for the other two panelists as well, just as more, you know, what can we do to address inequalities that are faced by the Black and Asian and ethnic minority communities, to make, especially on the back of obviously the government's report, which obviously wasn't great recently. We won't go into that too much, but I know, Andy, you said that, you know, you have set up a panel for Manchester, but it'd be great to hear more what is being done, and what work is, what are the priorities that you're going to tackle and how you're going to go about it.
Thanks, Shabana. We'll go to Andy first in that case. I was going to ask to unmute.
Thanks, Shabana. So sorry, I didn't realise the question was going to be asked, so I was
no.
Very efficient for me, not normally so prompt with my replies. So there is much more to say, of course, than what I put in the chat. So we have established a race equality panel, but we also stood up late last year an independent inequalities commission under Professor Kate Pickett. I don't know if colleagues know her, but she was the co-author of The Spirit Level in 2008, a very kind of well-known book, actually quite a groundbreaking book at its time, which made the argument that equality is better for everybody. You know, more equal societies are better in so many different ways. And we were honoured actually that she chaired a commission here. And to be honest, what it has done is it's kind of put tackling inequality back at the core of the Greater Manchester mission. And I'm not saying it ever really kind of completely went away, but obviously when you're trying to bring in inward investment, and, you know, that can become a sort of a bit of an obsession. But actually it's kind of centered us again, I think, about saying better work for everybody, better homes for everybody, you know, good health that comes from a good home and a good job, you know, in terms of not just physical health, mental health. You know, the basics for everybody is basically, if I summarize what her report was saying. But the truth of the matter is, there are many thousands of people living in Greater Manchester, London too, and other big cities, but many here who do not have the basics to allow them to have a good life and good health. And we've got to get much more serious, you know, as I said in my opening, you know, levelling up should be about that. Start in the poorest communities that have been hit hardest by COVID and change people's work and homes and the everyday experience of kids in those communities. So just a couple of specifics. we are going to link the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter to all public procurement in Greater Manchester. We're going to have a really massive effort to drive up the quality of work from the bottom up. We aim to be the country's first living wage city region. And this is going to be a really big theme for us in the next couple of years. Alongside that, a good landlord charter, improving housing for everybody. You can't have a good life without good housing. And too many landlords here don't treat their properties or their residents well at all. Afsal will know that in his constituency. Big change is needed there. A No Child Goes Hungry campaign. Lots of things more I could say about it, but I think the pandemic, to answer the kind of where you were coming from, is going to have the effect of centering Greater Manchester on the kind of mission of tackling inequality, which is kind of in our DNA, but we needed just to be kind of refocused on it, and I think it will refocus us on it. And if you obviously start with the people in some of our poorest communities, that often is people in many of our ethnic minority communities. And I hope that real change will come from the work that the Independent Inequalities Commission have done for us.
Thank you, Andy. I'll go to Zaya Salik next.
Yeah, I think in terms of tackling inequalities, I think Andy's done a good job on talking about the different initiatives. I think from my perspective, we've seen, I think Andy mentioned it in the chat, some initiatives like the efforts of Marcus Rashford and some of these other things. Really, it's amazing that he did it, but it shouldn't really take someone like him to have to drive something like that. And I think, there are so many, we could probably spend a whole session on this topic alone. But I think, these kind of things, they're so ingrained over so many, I guess, centuries, that it is going to take a gradual process to kind of undo some of the things that have come before us. And I think, having the right people in these positions, and I think you guys have got. I say you guys because although I kind of alluded to it, I don't live in Manchester, although I come to Manchester all the time. I have half my family live there, so I do have a close affinity. But you have got good people in the right places, and I'm sure there will be incremental positive change in addressing some of these issues. But we know, I think, we've seen when it comes to poverty, when it comes to people who come to food banks, when it comes to people who are applying for hardship grants, when it comes to people that are working in certain sectors which are on lower incomes and lower salaries, and people paying minimum wage, if that, and I think that's amazing to hear that the efforts to have at least a living wage charter there. So there's so many kind of angles to this that I think work clearly has started, and I think when we come out of this dip in our lifetimes, that this is obviously going to leave a scar on all of us, that we can start looking forward towards positive change. And I think we're not under any illusion that this is all going to be magic and it's going to be money's going to just appear from nowhere. But I think we have to understand that as a nation we have to prioritize where this country's money needs to be spent. We've got to, again, I've got two politicians here, so I guess this is the right platform. But, for example, in terms of our levels of taxation in this country compared to other parts of Europe, etc., and some of the global conglomerates that are taking billions out of this country, and the amount of tax that they pay into institutions that would hopefully address inequality. I think these are the big picture issues, but I think on a local level, I'm sure Andy is going to be driving home some of these great initiatives, and I'm hopeful for the region anyway.
Thanks, yeah, great words. And final speaker as well. So I'm just a bit mindful of time as well, but we have one more question afterwards. But I'll let you add on anything else you need to.
Yeah, for me, look, I've been involved with this work for many decades now. And the inequality at the heart of it, I think, is making sure there's a fair distribution. if you take a city like Manchester, it's a world-class city, and yet it has 28 wards out of 32, the 10% of the most deprived. So what's happening? Why is it that more and more people are not benefiting from the prosperity that we have? And you can project that to the national scale. We have the sixth sort of biggest economy in the world. Why is it that we've been pushed into that food banks opening up, then jobs happening? So there's a whole challenge there, which we need to actually take on. And I think the point I want to add on from what Andy was saying is also the point that there is a direct link between diversity and prosperity. So by making we have a fair system, that everyone in our society has a fair crack at things, that means we all actually benefit from it as well. So that connection of prosperity and diversity is also there. And I think for me personally, I've been involved with a number of different projects, which I think is going to take us towards dealing with this inequality stuff. And one of them is the diverse curriculum in the schools. I've set something up here in the Manchester Gorton, which I'm hoping to spread further, basically making sure that the young people, the education they're having, we've seen this from COVID-19, that this act of racism actually exists. And our young people are facing the brunt of this as well as they're, getting on in life. And we need to make sure that that doesn't happen. And we need to make sure that the world we are in, where we are so much connected and interdependent on one another, we have a better understanding. And that means it's for everyone, actually, that everyone needs to understand others better. And that again ties in the whole curriculum idea, which I think is going to be helpful. And the second thing I think also is the leadership idea. I want to take the opportunity to thank Andy. He's been an amazing leader. We've seen the challenges which has been here. We've seen the pandemic and the COVID-19, and you see the difference a good leadership makes. But you also can see also with the bad leadership what happens. The issue and the mess gets bigger. And in that sense, for me, developing leadership is also important. And it's another thing which I work on. I provide every year a course which it takes 20 or so young people from my area and develop them with the leadership skills. Because I think that is also a way forward. So I do hope that the inequality, the light that has been shone through COVID-19, we don't go back to status quo, but we actually learn from this and try to make the society much more fairer. Otherwise, it's going to hit us again hard as it has done now. So a final point I do want to say on this is on the government reform question was there. But the point with that one I find was this. I just couldn't understand why the government wanted to have this report, because I could see about half a dozen different reports under this government which had come out, which actually talked about inequality, which talked about different things that needs to be done. So there are hundreds of recommendations already sitting there, and yet government wasn't trying to do anything with those recommendations, but wanted to have another report. But when we got the report, then I realized why they wanted the report. And at the heart of it is this idea that there is no institutionalized racism. Now, that is the big issue, because that means they don't have a responsibility. It means responsibility is on the shoulder of me and you. That is what is wrong, I think, because ultimately we need to tackle that institutionalized racism in our society. Of course, individual racism exists, but the biggest harm comes through institutionalized racism. And that is what we need to be hitting harder.
Thank you, Abdul. Thank you for the powerful words. I think I don't think I've had this many applauses before in any session, and I don't know if you can see the screen from all the interaction from everyone, but everyone's got the thumbs up and interaction as well, which is great. I've got Councillor Heather Fletcher patiently waiting to ask a question, and so I'm gonna unmute her and bring her on.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for this wonderful initiative. I'm going to make my question a bit more light-hearted. Poverty, I totally understand with what you've said, but it's not my speciality. I'm a counsellor for one of the least deprived areas in Salford. So my question and my comments are about interfaith work and the massive importance of interfaith work. Now, nearly 16 years ago, my friend over there, Afzal Khan, co-founded the Muslim Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester, and Andy has been the guest at some of our events. And up until the pandemic, we'd held 120 events in 15 years. And through those events, which were very varied, from picnics to lawyers' events, we brought together people, Muslim people, Jewish people mainly, but people from all religions and no religions. And it's that, the importance of interfaith work, that brings people together. They get to know each other, they understand each other, and they're tolerant. Now, I was very, very frightened, to be honest, at the beginning of the pandemic, thinking all our good work is going to finish because we can't get together. But thankfully, our former co-chair, I've got something to thank him for, he put us on Zoom, and we've had 11 Zoom meetings. And the good news is that we've reached out to people further afield. There's a lady from Durham that joins us regularly. Our next session is being joined by about at least 20 people from the Republic of Ireland. And my question is, does Zoom have a future in keeping us together, or do you think we'll all forget Zoom once we go back to real life?
Thank you, Heather. I'm going to unmute all three speakers, and I'll let Zia, you've coughed.
Oh, sorry.
Onto you first. Onto you first.
Yeah, I'll make it brief because I know Andy has to jump off in a minute. But yeah, I don't think Zoom's going away anytime soon. I honestly question my sanity when I think back to the 3-hour drives I would do for a 1-hour meeting in some part of the country. And I'm hoping that the new norm in that respect stays. So yeah, definitely much more efficient and virtually environmentally friendly. And yeah, let's carry on where we can. Of course, not saying that we don't want to come together and break bread and eat together, because that has its own benefits. But just generally in life, I think Zoom is here to stay, or whatever video conferencing software of your choice.
Thank you, Andy. Onto you.
I think hang on to your shares in Zoom, Heather, is what I would say, because I don't think it will stay like this, but I do think it will be used for some meetings, to bring people across together in the way that you're describing, in a way that you just couldn't in a physical sense. So from wider geographies, or a meeting like this tonight, I think we are missing something with these meetings, aren't we? In terms of just reading people, that emotional connection, intelligence. So that's the negative. The positive is, in my world and in your world, Heather, you don't get people plotting over the tea and coffee in the corner before the political meeting starts. So that's a positive. You kind of, you can dispense with the politicking and you just get down to business. But yeah, I think Zoom will be a feature, I think. And we're talking about equality tonight. We really do have to add digital inclusion to the list of basics that I was talking about before. This isn't a kind of luxury anymore. The world connects in this way now. And if our fellow citizens can't access this conversation through lack of a device or lack of data, we need to start talking about it as a basic. Otherwise, people will be out of the conversation. They won't be able to access companionship and support. And I do think that's a change that needs to come here. We need to support all fellow citizens online and into the room and into the conversation, don't we? And I think, Zoom will be there as part of linking people across different backgrounds, generations. So maybe not all of our meetings, because it's a hard day, a whole day of Zoom, as we all know, that Zoom headache. I'm sure you've had it, I've had it. So a mixture is what I'm going to say. But yeah, the odd Zoom meeting, I reckon, to be about 4 or 5 Zoom meetings a week is what I would imagine in my diary once we're through all of this. So your shares, they may go down a bit in value, Heather, but as I say, hang on to them.
I think I agree. I'm losing money now, but in the long run, it'll pay off. And Afzal, I'm sorry, we've got a few minutes left over, so I'll pass it on to you for a few words.
All I would say is, look, technology never goes backward. Technology always goes forward. So this idea of communication of different ways is going to get more and more, not less. So it's here to stay. So I agree with the previous two speakers. But for the only other thing I would say is, like Andy was saying, something is missing. And I think it's the human touch. The human touch is unique in the sense that, if you think of the creation of different things we have, whether, for example, dog who has a 4,000 times smell better than us, or the bat at night, the zoom-in system that they have on the noise, it's amazing. But the best thing about humans is the human touch. Our tips, they are so sensitive. There's nothing other sensitive as this. So that touch, I think, is very important and it's powerful. It's part of us as human. And I think we need that as well.
Thank you, Afzal. Sophia, I'm going to bring you on, but we honestly have maybe 1 minute max, not even a minute, just 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, it was a very quick one, and it's about the youth because, I'm part of some homeless projects and things, and I keep seeing so many youth that are, homeless, they haven't got any jobs and things, and, their prospects are very bleak in their minds. So I just wanted to know, Andy and Mr. Khan as well, how you're going to be tackling all of this, making sure that the youth are included in all of these projects and things, because they are our future.
I'm going to unmute Andy for a 30-second.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, you're here, yep.
We've got to, it's the right question. They've sacrificed so much, haven't they, young people? And I think they need a real lift coming out of this. Their mental health needs lifting, but also their aspiration. We have a survey here. We ask people, young people, do they have hope for the future? And there's been a big drop in the last year. So we are working really hard. We have a policy of all young people online, free bus pass for our 16 to 18s, and we've created a UCAS system for apprenticeships to connect them to job opportunities in Greater Manchester. So absolutely agree with you. We're going to have a big focus on young people here coming out of this.
Thank you, Andy. I'll give you 10 seconds.
Well, like Andy said, look at Brexit, what's happened with the COVID-19, all of these things have really knocked the confidence from the youth as well. It's going to have a huge impact on them, and we have a responsibility, like the questioner said, they are our future, and we have to invest in the future if we want to have a brighter future.
Thank you, Afzal. Thank you to all the speakers. We are, I think, 10 seconds into the Azan now, so what we'll do is we'll have the wrap up after this, after the Azan. And I know, Andy, you have to leave, so no problem at all. Thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
اللهم إني لك صمت وبك آمنت وعلى رزقك أفطرت ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد.
Okay, hope everyone's open that fast. I'm gonna unmute the speakers. Just before, I mean, that was probably one of the most engaging sessions I've had. I've just got to say, like that went really well.
You say that to all of them.
This one especially, because I don't have to speak that much. There's a lot of interactions, and I don't think I've seen as many claps or applauses from audience as this. So maybe there's something to do with Manchester. Who knows? So I know
we're very warm people, you know.
Say again, sorry.
We are very warm people.
Definitely, I have to admit, it's true. I need to come up one day again, and hopefully I can meet everyone else in real life as well. Andy had to leave for the audience watching at home. He had a meeting to go to, but we want to thank him for joining us today and sharing his thoughts as well. Definitely was very valuable for us, and hopefully, inshallah, we have him again next year as well. Whilst I have you here as well, Afzal as well, thank you again for joining us. Any last remarks or any last comments you want to sort of make? Yeah, happy to do that now.
All I'm going to say is, again, thank you for bringing us all together. And I again want to reiterate my words. I think Umar and his team and the Ramadan 10th project is an amazing, it's excellent. It's a great example of how we can bring communities together, Muslims and non-Muslims. And that is the need of the day, need of the hour, actually. That the more work we do of reducing tension, more work we do of rebuilding a better understanding of one another, and making sure we understand the commonality that exists between humans. You had Heather before. She gave you an example of 130 plus that we did. To be honest, I did the co-founding, but I tell you one thing, I learned so much. And one of the things I learned was that how much there is a commonality between the Jewish and the Muslim community, even in the question of faith. So that is what you miss if you don't know. You could be so close and yet you're so far apart. So thank you for the work.
And yeah,
Definitely, yeah. Echo what Afzal said. I think when lockdown kicked in, organizations that do events like RTP must have been thinking, all right, what do we do? Like this, getting people together was our thing, and now we're not allowed to be together. So hats off to the team for pivoting online and actually, like, people that turn up on the day, we get a link, we register, and we rock up and listen and be inspired by the speakers. But having also had the shoe on the other foot, as they say, being behind the scenes organizing these things, I know how much work goes into it, how many hours of planning, how many emails and calls, and mashallah, like the volunteers that drive every organization, not just RTP, but like even from our perspective from Islamic Relief, most of our regions have one, maybe two staff if we're lucky, but we have hundreds of volunteers that drive everything that we do. And I'm sure it's very similar for RTP. And I think, considering the infrastructure that the project has in terms of full-time people and the actual reach that you're having, and the fact that you've managed to put this schedule together for the whole month and getting so many people engaged and bringing people together, I think it's amazing. I think, as Afzal said, these kind of things, I mean, most people won't know the commonalities between different faiths, between Muslims and Jews, and Muslims and Christians, Muslims and Sikhs, and vice versa. The virtual session I was with Afzal the other day, we were talking about fasting and the commonality that exists between so many faiths, not just the Abrahamic faiths, but even outside of that, the concept of fasting. And the fact that we use it as self-discipline, but it's also a way that we thank God for, as a means to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our Jewish friends may not be aware, but we actually thank God for Allah saving Moses from Pharaoh, and to thank God we fast. We fast for several days to celebrate the day that God saved Moses and his people from the Pharaoh. So like these kind of things, you don't get to have conversations like this in your own circles, and it's only when you come to a platform like this that you're able to do that. And I think it's great, and we look forward to when we can attend these events in person, because like Afzal said, there's nothing like a human touch. So we look forward to it. We thank everyone behind the scenes, especially the volunteers that put so many hours into this. It is greatly appreciated. It really does make an impact, and for every single person that joins in, it touches their lives and it will leave an impact. So just know that it's making a huge difference, and I'm really grateful for being given the opportunity to join.
Thank you. Those are really, really kind words, and we really respect and appreciate that. I think, every week I sit over here and other volunteers sit over here, we thank our media partners, and we definitely do appreciate them as well. Islam Channel's done a phenomenal job, and the UK Arts Council as well, to make this happen. But I think what I don't reiterate, and I think what you've said rightly so as well, are all the volunteers behind the scenes. You might see the face over here presenting, but actually there's so many people behind the scenes that dedicate so much time and effort and planning and everything else to make all of this happen. And I want to be able to thank them today as well, and also for the whole month and the years they put the efforts in. I couldn't certainly do this without their help, and I don't think we would have this opportunity online as well. So from my side, thank you for the thank you for the speakers first and foremost for joining us, and thank you for the volunteers and the back end and the front and everywhere else as well that's made this possible. And the final thank you, I think, really goes down to the audience joining us. This is why why do we do this in the first place? We want people to interact, we want people to engage, and we want this to be beneficial in this month and going forward as well. So we really hope this is beneficial. It does bring value. We would love to hear your thoughts and actually hear about how it's had an impact. The last final point, I think, is you can go online on Ramadan Tent Project and you can look at all the work that we've done, but also the Open Iftar packs that we have this year as well. sponsoring those goes a long way, not only just to help this organization, but also help those in need as well. I know certainly donations from that are going towards people that genuinely need it. So it's having a positive effect all forward. I think that's all from me. I think everyone must be sick and tired of me speaking and just want to get some food now. So if that's everything.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you.
Salam alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.